Okay, we're off.
Hello, Hello, everybody. It's the Frank and Stan chat, and it's been a bizarre week, a crazy week, and as you can see, Stan's getting into the festive spirit already.
Too early.
It's just the Frank and Stan chat today. That we have no guests, as you can see, and I think we're over 30 of these editions, and as Stan says, you stop counting when you get to 30, so we've stopped counting. But it's been another tumultuous week in education, and quite a lot to get through. Hello, Stan.
I just thought we should start December with a bit of a Christmas feel.
Yeah.
Probably now not until the 25th will I have any kind of Christmas thought.
Have you put your decorations up yet?
No, I've put the lights on the tree outside because we were light shamed into it. Everybody else had their lights up. So I've done that. We're not doing anything else yet.
Well, we have. It's quite nice. There's a couple at the end of the road who are very community minded, and like when the Queen's birthday or whatever, some Queen's celebration, they get the road closed and they have a street party and stuff like that. Well, she's organised an official Christmas lights ceremony, 4 o'clock tomorrow. But actually at 2:30 we've got Father Christmas coming up the street, meeting all the children and what have you. So yeah, the lights are going on the outside of the house this afternoon, but we're not going to have any up until next weekend in the house itself. So I don't know what these real Christmas trees, what they're going to look like by Christmas Day. I have no idea. But anyway, that's not why we're here. That's not why people are viewing into us. Stan, well, let me just say, this is the week when the Department for Education, Secretary of State, has tried to clarify what will happen with regard to next year's exams and what will happen with regard to Ofsted inspections. A lot is unresolved, so that's probably what we're going to chat a lot about today. But it's that week, because when we look back on these videos, we'll be finding it difficult to know, well, what was actually happening at that time. So anyway,
what chaos was reigning at that point.
I know. Anyway, also it's the same week, I have to say, when the Secretary of State for Education decided to go on a national radio station to say that Great Britain was better than most of the other countries in the world. Which
England.
England. It was England. Oh gosh, England. And I'm a proud Brit, but I don't think I ever got to a position where I felt as though, having travelled parts of the world, that I've ever felt as though we are any better than anybody else. We are different, but no better.
Particularly as a thing you were celebrating is something that's been developed in Germany with American help, and the scientists were Turkish, of Turkish descent. But hey, don't let facts get in the way of your waving of your glory flag.
Well, has that caught your eye then this week? Is that what's caught your eye?
No, something else, but with the same person. I don't know if you follow a guy called Andy Jolly on.
I do.
On Twitter. He's done an FOI on the statement that schools, no figure of schools, were putting all students through as A's and B's in the A levels last year.
That was going to be my one as well, Stan.
Was it? Well, that's great, because he did an FOI to find out how many schools actually did that. And out of the 3,800 schools, there was 119 centres, of which 93 of them had less than 5 students. So it's not even credible to say that schools, it's a very small minority of schools. There's only 14 schools that had more than 10 entries. And
most of those that did push through students with a B or higher were private schools or private entries. 35
were independent schools, and 42 were other, which includes individual children being put through exams. So again, not exactly a lie, but certainly disingenuous with the truth.
Correct. And actually, I think that for somebody who will be very keen to have the vaccine at the right time, you know, because I have faith in the system that delivers safe medicines to us. The reason why we are where we'll be, I suspect the reason why there's a lack of trust is because at times people have been, you know, politicians have been less than truthful. And that's why they're not able to take everybody with them.
Rees-Mogg has said the reason we've been able to do this more quickly is because we're no longer in the EU, which is patently not true. We've done it under emergency powers because we're still following the rules, because we're still in transition, and we've done it under emergency powers, which any of the countries could do. The others appear to just have chosen to work collaboratively.
Yeah.
I've just got, and this is a personal conspiracy, is it because we need to get all these vaccines in from Germany, and come the 1st of January, if things haven't gone well, there might be either huge tariffs on them, or we might not be able to get them across the border.
Yeah. Well,
just
yeah. Don't get me on this, because this could be the Frankenstein, you know, Brexit is a bad idea video. But the one for me is what's caught my eye is, and I was contacted by the TES this week because I have put some pressure on some opposition MPs to put questions forward about local authority attendance figures. The DfE has only been publishing national attendance figures. They're not broken down by local authority. And the figures I know within the Northwest, because I have access to, with the role I do in Blackpool, I do have access to the Northwest ADCS do issue figures to each other. And I know where the attendance figures are a concern. But I also know that more recently, in line with the reduction in infection rates in the Northwest, that attendance is sort of stabilized. I wouldn't say it's got any better, but it's sort of stabilized, and it's somewhere around about the 84%, 83% mark. And the issue here is around if it's stabilizing in the north and actually attendance figures nationally are going down, it looks as though the high rates of infection have gone elsewhere. So there are other schools in other parts of the country that are actually going through what the Northwest went through perhaps 3 or 4 weeks ago, and nobody knows. And for me, if I was a trustee, or if I was a director of children's services or whatever, or even just a head teacher or a parent, I'd want to know where those infection rates were now. You know, are they in, I don't think they're in Stockport, but they're probably somewhere down in Kent. I think it's, is it?
Yeah, well, there was a Kent school on the news last night, wasn't there, with the attendance issue.
But it's the lack of, it's the unwillingness to share and to be open about the issues that actually has meant that there's this sort of like secrecy, as if you're trying to pull one over me. You know, what have you got to hide? You know, and that's the thing, isn't it, around the sort of vaccine. You know, well, what are you hiding from us? You know, is this just being done because it suits you? You know, all of those sorts of language has gone.
Because keeping schools open was a political decision. I won't say it was against the science, but the science has since said that the biggest source or the most infections are in school-age children, or one of the big sources are, and that doesn't suit the story. Because the story is we're keeping schools open because that's the best thing for children, and we're closing pubs because that's where the transmission starts. So I can understand, I don't think it's right, but I can understand why they are not publishing those figures, because those figures would, one, disrupt or question their decision, but secondly, it shoots to pieces the idea of a fair exam system at the end of this year.
Absolutely. I mean, what they've so let's get on to that now then. So the Secretary of State announced this week some mitigation to try and address the looming problem that there is over exams in the summer. And that includes sort of more generous grading than usual, so that's in line with the results of last summer. Students getting notice of some topic areas so they can focus their revision.
I told the DFE probably 10 years ago now, just give the kids the answers. You can save a lot of time and effort, 100% across the board. You don't need to do all that analysis. I did say to DFE while there were some head teachers there, and one head teacher did say to me, well, hang on a minute, Stan, even with 100%, with all the answers, I'm not guaranteeing 100%. But this is, I mean, this is now getting to a level where nobody's going to trust those results. And my view is you shouldn't moan about it if you're not providing a solution. So here's my solution, whether you like it or not. Next term, early in the term, send out some moderating exams, tests based on old papers. I'm sure the examining boards can issue some things. Group schools in fives, not within the same map. Get them to moderate each other's results and have them a teacher assessment based in spring. And that teacher assessment carries right up until they do GCSEs or do their A-levels, and whichever the A-level exam or the teacher assessment, whichever's the highest mark counts. So that students know from Easter what their mark is. They know what their minimum is, and they either work like stink to improve it for their exam, or they know that they'll get the next stage in education sorted, but there'll be no stress on that part. And people, you know, I know people talking about the vaccine and everything will be sorted. I don't think we'll see vaccine to that age of student till probably June, July anyway.
And even if we have 1 million vaccines delivered or injected into people every week, that's still going to take us well into the summer before we get close. You know, I mean, it would take actually over a year. If not everybody's going to get the vaccine, but if everybody in the country was to get the vaccine, it would take it's into 2022 before actually everybody. So the scale of this is enormous.
And then, Frank, you're on your second one then, because the virus has changed slightly, so it's got like the flu virus. So,
but I think the thing is that I like that.
Why can't the government see that as a simple solution? It doesn't hurt anybody. It keeps exams there as a fallback position. And schools, I'm absolutely positive schools would cooperate with that.
Well, the thing is, for me, is just where has been the engagement? You know, to try and find a solution.
It said on the news that you talk with head teachers.
I don't. Well, the thing for me is around who are the head teachers they're talking to, because, you know, it does disappoint me. Like yesterday, the BBC, I thought Branwen Jeffries yesterday on Breakfast was brilliant. She was on for about a minute, but she summed up what the problem is, you know, in a minute. And Lewis Goodall last night went, I think he went to Dudley, where there is, you know, the head teacher there has got swathes of kids off and making the point that this isn't fair. You know, whatever that came up yesterday is just going to ensure everybody's treated the same and not everybody's been affected the same. And he was saying, you know, the point I've been making again and again is that, you know, if you are trying to deal with this by being equal to everybody, you are not dealing with the problem. You know, and actually my great concern is around levelling up, the levelling up agenda. If this is demonstrating how the government intends to level up, it ain't going to work, because basically what they mean by levelling up is keeping everything the same. Hopefully everybody moves up the same. That is not levelling up. That's moving up, but it's not levelling up. And in a way they cannot, I don't see the government able to actually sort of get their head round treating areas which favoured their party more generously. You know, they want to treat them as generously as other areas. And actually I can see that the North is going to struggle with this, you know, that this whole agenda is going to disadvantage kids in the north, those in high infection areas. That, you know, and I just don't see this as a viable way forward. And if somebody asked me to get involved, I'd be really, you know, on the panel, because I've been looking at a panel to come up with a solution as to how they deal with the inequality. Actually, I think that's a really dangerous place to be, because actually I don't think that's going to be the you know, there's whether there's the will to make that happen. Because for me, it's around, you know, I don't think exams are viable next summer.
No.
You know, I just don't think, you know, children could sit them, but what counts is probably the teacher's assessment of them. And really, we need something which includes exam and teacher assessment. The exams are used to support teacher evaluation, teacher assessment of children's progress.
Well, in primary, I think Gavin Williams has said this week, or maybe yesterday, that SATs will stay because schools use them as an important way of assessing how well they're doing.
I know that. Well, that's see, Nick Gibb is the minister responsible for standards, isn't he? And actually, he just loves the phonics screening test, you know. But it's not that he loves the phonics. He sees that as his approach towards ensuring children can read. And anybody who's been a primary teacher will know that, yes, you do need to have phonics. Yes, you do. But on its own, I mean, in a way, it's just so narrow. It's just, they can't give it up. They just can't give up exams. They can't give up the loss of the progress measures.
But they've got SPAG, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's...
So that, you know, what value has that been in stressing children and teachers out for the last 3 or 4 years? What value is it when you can just say, all right, we'll just drop that one?
But I think what they've done with Key Stage 1, where I think they've said they don't need to do them, I think that's the thing. But actually, I do feel as though Key Stage 2, Year 6 students, pupils, if they were, if they had the opportunity, if they wanted to sit those exams or those assessments in the summer, that's fine. You know, if they want to do that, that's fine. If schools feel as though but actually, it's all of the processes around that.
It's how it's used.
Yes, absolutely.
By agencies outside of the school. That's the issue.
Yeah.
And I've been talking recently with a high school that we're talking about transition. And one of the issues has been, obviously, in the past, they've always had SATs results to help sort the children out. And in fact, I think they streamed the children based on SAT results. This year, they've not done that. They're doing some assessments in the last couple of weeks to start to get a picture of where the children are. But they've worked them in mixed ability groups, and the teachers I spoke to said it's been really good.
Yeah. I know.
It's been really social and really, you know.
Somebody was saying that at the moment, I think Andy Hodgkinson, who was on a couple of weeks ago, has said that actually what the government's doing is looking back in terms of education reform rather than looking forward. And I think, and I thought, yeah, there's perhaps a little bit in that, isn't there, about, you know, that actually this is just in a way there's something here also about, you know, how great the country was, and you know, the Gavin Williamson comments, you know, about England. You know, there is something of a sort of theme running through this, you know, about perhaps, you know, a Brexit issue, which is about how things used to be and how things were settled and everything was fine, you know, instead of really looking forward and saying, well, you know, for the future, if we're looking at a digital technology, if we're looking at green energy and green industries, we need a complete transformation, you know, of what we teach and how we teach it, you know.
Because if we're going to go back to how things were, we need to reintroduce rickets and rubella and
What do you think about Ofsted then? They've
the supportive inspections. I love that.
That was the word. I mean, supportive monitoring visits. Was it a? You know, Stan, you and I know when you're on inspection, you can't block out something you've seen or heard. Yeah, I think
it's not. It's a different process. If you're going to be a supportive organisation. You're actually then a school improvement organisation. You're not an inspection. So either choose one or the other, because you can't be both. You can't go into a school and say, this is what's wrong with your school, this is how we're going to make it better, and then judge it to be better. That it's not possible. The whole idea that I understood of HMI was that it was independent.
Yes, I know. I think that's the thing that's gone. And interesting, John Dunford, he wrote this fascinating book on the history of HMI. And he talks about the way that over the years, the role of HMI, you know, and at that time it was embedded in government. You know, it wasn't seen as an independent body, but actually it swung from sort of standards and inspection into advisory work. You know, because and I do remember the first contact I ever had with HMI was when I attended a conference in Llandudno about planning and assessment in the primary school. And that was really just about bringing people together. HMI facilitated that. It was a fantastic, interesting a conference at the start of the introduction of the national curriculum. But actually they moved quickly back, and I was responsible in my Ofsted years of actually turning, I remember David Bell saying to me, you know, how can we have Her Majesty's inspectors when nobody inspects? And actually we then sort of went on a program of introducing inspection activity, you know, frontline section 5 inspection activity to all HMI, so that in effect they all became frontline inspectors. But you can't, as you say, you can't, if you can't do supportive visits while you're still inspecting, you know, and at the end of the day you are inspecting, you know. So
I'm interested to see how many schools put their hand up if you say we want a supportive inspection.
Well, some of them will. I mean, I'm quite disappointed with head teachers who feel as though that the only reason for their existence is to get a good grade. You know, they're driven by the good grade, and actually I think that communities need a bit more than that.
What's the percentage now of good and outstanding schools? It must be.
Well, well, the annual report came out this week, and it's clear that the number of schools that are going into a category is about the same number as coming out. And what Amanda Spielman was stressing was that she had achieved what she set out to achieve, which was that the introduction of the new framework would not destabilize the grading profile. So she made great play on the fact that there was this, you know, that there was no real significant shift in the proportions of schools that were not good. But
the reason for that, Frank, is that the outstanding schools still aren't being all inspected.
Well, most of the a high proportion of those that have fallen are but haven't fallen into RI. They've fallen from outstanding to good.
Yeah. Well, the percentage of good and outstanding remains the same. So actually, again, it's a misdirected sentence to say the balance hasn't changed, because it has.
Yeah, when we were inspecting, about, it would have been please forgive me if you're watching this and I get it wrong, but it was in the sort of like 60s, 60%, 65, 69% that were good or better. Now we're in the mid 80s. So what happened in the previously is that you'd introduce a new framework that would actually sort of raise the bar. I think that's the term, you know, so it then became, you know, the next wave of challenge. But actually by not increasing, by keeping things stable with 80, your high mid 80s, there's very little headroom to raise the bar. You know, I mean, in a way, what do you do? Where does this go? Because what happens when you previously introduced a framework, you'd see a dip in number of schools that were good, and then they would come back. But here, if it's stable, where does it go? And you know, so in a way, picking up on the monitoring, the supportive element, I think that there really, I'm not sure that there's much value in visiting these schools at this moment in time.
No.
If we've got another wave potentially coming, if we've still got young people that are being infected, still, you know, we've still got some infection in society. I think it could be quite difficult to conduct these inspections. So And I just love the way that Scotland's dealt with it. Or is it Wales? One of them has said, right, forget this year. We're coming back in September. And the question then, Stan, is the framework fit for purpose now?
Yeah, well,
if you and I were sitting down to devise a framework, would you, I mean, yes, curriculum is important. It always was important.
Yeah.
But what are you looking at now? What areas would you really focus in on to see what a quality of a school was?
What really annoyed me about something that Amanda Spielman said was that schools aren't used to dealing with the social side of things.
I know.
Every child matters. Do you remember that?
I know.
Every child matters was the thing that primary schools said. At least, right? We know this. This is what we can. This is what we're good at.
Yeah, I know. The thing for me is that there are moments when leaders reveal their ignorance, and that can be really damaging. You know, we've seen that with. Well, we perhaps saw that with Gavin Williamson this week on the radio station. You know, I mean, I don't know how many people thought, "Oh, good on you, Gav, well done." I certainly wasn't one of those. But the thing is that, isn't it, is around people use a language, the way that they say it, it gives you a confidence that they know what it's like. That was telling, wasn't it? That I lost a lot of confidence in the chief inspector when she said it about, in effect, this is a new thing. So going back to the question, you answered it, didn't you? That actually, if we're going to do a new framework, how much focus is there on community, links with local services, links with the third sector, links with families? How much of that was given any credence at all previously? So we you know, that's the thing that I kept going on about, context. If you're in a really, you know, it's all right going into Windsor and Maidenhead, but actually you're going into certain parts of northern cities, you're thinking there's another job going on here, and actually inspectors are not even been bothered to look at it.
No, and you occasionally you'll get a clip on the local news where they're talking to a school that are doing breakfast clubs and things, and they say, well, why are you doing that? And you know, we have to have the children ready to learn. And if they're hungry, they're not ready to learn. If they're angry because of something that's happened at home, they're not ready to learn. So we have to spend time getting them in a position where they can learn. And if Amanda Spielman doesn't realise that, or thinks that's somebody else's job, then she's in cloud cuckoo land.
I know. Well, and on that happy note,
culture is what I would be having high on the agenda. How does the school behave as an organisation?
But also, why, if head teachers think that their purpose is to get a good judgment for their school, then all of this has proved that you've been chasing the wrong tail, because actually you would have got that previously with Ofsted without really having to address anything much to do with your community. You know, the community is central to an effective school, isn't it? An outstanding school does all of that. But actually that framework, and I'm as good as anybody, of gradually over the years reducing the focus on that. But there were political decisions there as well, moving from the Department for Children and Families to the Department of Education. That's a big statement. But we need to quickly get back to children and families.
I've probably told you this one before, but when I came back from being an inspector from that year working with Ofsted, I was very clear that we didn't have a social role to play. We were all about education. We were, and I was almost brainwashed into that. Yeah. And I remember talking with the staff about history and saying, right, we're not namby-pamby in history. Right from the start, we're going to have children working out what was real, what's fact, what's not fact. And I did this great rant, and I'm sure Ofsted would have been proud of me. And then my deputy came into my office afterwards, and she's a reception teacher, and she said, what do you want me to do about the tooth fairy? And I was destroyed. Destroyed in a second. Because she was absolutely right. These are children, not grown-ups with little legs. They're actually children. I needed that knocking out of me. There were things I learned, don't get me wrong, that helped me be far better at my job as a head teacher that I learned with
Yes,
Ofsted.
I agree entirely with you.
Some of it was just wrong.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for watching. Next week we have a head teacher from a primary school who's going to join us, and he has been through this epidemic, you know, and we'll hear from him as to how he and his staff, children, community have managed it. So we look forward to listening to and chatting to Ian Coulson next week. So thank you, Stan. Have a good week, and I'll see you next Friday.
Okay, enjoy building your whatever you're building.
Oh yeah, a Wendy house. The joys of being a grandparent. I love it.